3, 2, 1.
Welcome in. That's a surly Steve Sipple counting us in.
Yeah,
I'm Chris. There's Parker. It's the Life in the Red podcast. 3:14 p.m., April 27th, 2022. It's a beautiful spring day here in Lincoln, Nebraska. Nebraska football team hoping for a beautiful weekend this weekend. We'll touch on the Huskers. We'll touch on the NFL
spring
draft.
game. Spring game this weekend, right?
Yeah, the spring game is Saturday, Sipple. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Yeah, that got by me. I'm
yeah,
at the stadium.
Slipped your mind a little bit.
Yeah, it got by me.
And then we'll also we'll touch on some baseball and hoops on our way out the door here. But hey, let's get right into it. Nebraska hoping for a big weekend on the transfer portal front as far as players coming in. Pretty close or been in pretty heavy contact with some defensive linemen, as everybody knows. Some pass rushers, O'Shawn Mathis from TCU, Devin Drew from Texas Tech. Sounds like we're going to get answers on both those guys in the coming days. So I guess I'll turn it over to you guys. Parker, Sip, how do you like Nebraska's chances of landing one and or both of those guys at a position Nebraska really needs help?
I think given the circumstances, we let Parker have the floor.
Should I take the floor?
Please.
Me and Baz are sort of in our fields, so you might have to carry. You might have to carry this a little bit.
Well, Baz is now choking to death on Mountain Dew.
I got Mountain Dew halfway up my nose.
That's a big change. Isn't that?
Yeah, that's super weird, isn't it? Well, better than having something else halfway up my nose, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose so. I'll start. It's we'll talk about me later. That's fine. Let's talk about recruiting for right now. I think
you want to do it.
I think Nebraska. However you want to do it. I think Nebraska is in pretty good shape for both guys. You know, we know for sure that O'Shawn Mathis is deciding or announcing his decision between Nebraska and Texas on Saturday. And I don't know, Sipple. I get the sense that Nebraska is in pretty good shape for him. Now, I'm sure people around Austin would say the same about the Longhorns. I mean, there's two teams left standing for him, and you know what the deal is. The Athletic had him ranked as the best player available in the portal. He's a position of need for both teams. He's had 13 sacks over the past 2 years. He'd be the best pass rusher Nebraska's had, probably under Scott Frost, the most accomplished at least. And so that's a huge one. And we'll all find out together on Saturday. I feel better about Nebraska's chances now than I would have told you maybe a couple of weeks ago. I think they've done as good a job as they can do on him. And I think they're in really good shape for Devin Drew. And we'll see if that could happen on Saturday as well, or this weekend. And I mean, if they just added Devin Drew, I think that'd be productive for the defense. He'd be sort of a Casey Rogers replacement, would be, I guess, the simplest way to think about it. And if they added both of those guys, now you feel less worried, maybe not entirely alleviated, but substantially less worried about the depth up front. They were able to land both of those guys.
Devin Drew from Texas Tech. His stats, he had 34 tackles last year. That's a good number for a defensive tackle. Played on the end of a 3-4 front. I like the fact that he played every game the last 2 seasons. Availability is critical.
And he played 11 games in each of his 2 seasons at Iowa Western before that. So,
okay.
Yeah. So he's played in 44 college games in 4 years.
Is there any reason why I couldn't call Scott Strohmeyer for quotes on him?
I don't think so. The SID
Can you comment on him?
I'm sure he could. Yeah. The SID at Iowa Western got mad at me once because I just texted Strohmeyer and he called me and we talked for a few minutes and he's like, the guy introduced himself. He's like, going forward, if you wouldn't mind. I was like, okay.
Okay, well, I'll take that under consideration. Yeah,
and then just call Scott. Yeah.
Devin Drew. Yes, it feels like they have a very good chance with Devin Drew. I don't know. I don't want to make any predictions on O'Shawn Mathis. He said it's down to 2. That's good enough for me right now. But yeah, I think Drew would alleviate a lot of fears. In fact, he's in some ways now. No disrespect to Casey Rogers, but you're getting a healthy player for sure.
Right.
That doesn't seem to have any injury history of note. And that's big. And he's productive. We're not hyping a guy we know nothing about. He's done it in the Big 12 at a pretty high level for a poor defense, but he played at a high enough level. What do you think, Baz? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. It's your
Pro Football Focus had him rated as their best run defender, Texas Tech's best run defender last year. And Pro Football Focus also had him north of 500 snaps over 13 games. So you got one extra game, but even if you acknowledge that Nebraska only played 12, Texas Tech played 13, he still played more snaps per game than anybody on Nebraska's defensive line last year, except for Ben Stilley. Ben Stilley played like 560, was sort of 3-down type of guy for Nebraska. So that's what you're talking about. I mean, you're essentially talking about a starting caliber workload that Devin Drew handled last year at Texas Tech. And so you have fact-based evidence that he's capable of playing that number of snaps, at the Power 5 level.
Yeah, I think anytime you can get a transfer from Texas Tech's defense, you absolutely have to do it. They're no.
Whoa.
No, I'm just joking.
Whoa.
I'm just joking. Come on. We all know Big 12 defenses are traditionally very stout.
He's going to sweep in here from the plains and find your bald head.
My bald head. Who's wearing a hat? Big boy.
He's going to sweep right in here from Lubbock.
No, like the wind rolling down the West Texas plains. He's going to sweep into Nebraska and take me down. No, look, he's what Nebraska needs, right? It's everything you guys said. Like, he's played a ton of college games. He's stayed healthy. He's durable. And he's got experience in a Power 5 league. Like, it's exactly what Nebraska needs. And it's really just that simple, I think. You can talk about, and I just joked about it, but you can talk about the defense he played in and how productive it was or whatever else. But look, it's one guy coming in at a position need that can stay healthy and is going to be pretty ready-made to fit right in. So it makes sense for Nebraska. It makes sense for Devin because it's a fit and it's a place where he's going to play a lot of football and get a chance to prove himself in the Big Ten. So, yeah, look, if Nebraska gets this guy, and it sounds like Parker said, they're in pretty good shape to get him, it seems like a pretty good weekend for Nebraska, even if you just get him.
A side note, Parker, you have a if just in case story ready for Devin Drew. Do you have that Pro Football Focus information in there by any chance?
I believe I do, yeah.
All right, thank you. Yeah. We have a just in case story ready.
Yeah. A little behind the scenes,
little how the sausage is made.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I mean, it's just in case.
Yeah. People do not have to worry. It will not be that I've written it from the front seat of a U-Haul.
We might ask you to do things like that, but I'm joking, Parker. You are on your own. We'll get to this later.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that. So the other thing about what?
No, go ahead.
The other thing about all of this is that what you're really like. I think Scott Frost said this on the radio the other night. He said they like what they have on the defensive line. Like, they like their young guys. They just need more. That's the thing. I mean, you can't go into a season with Ty Robinson, Nash Hutmacher, who's never played substantial snaps over multiple weeks or let alone an entire season, and walk on like Colton Feast, even if he's a guy you like. And, that's not enough experience to hold up on the interior for a full season in the Big Ten. So the thing that adding a guy like Devin Drew does, and then, they probably need more than just him if they're going to feel good about it. Maybe that's Mathis. Maybe that's Lamar Goods, who's a defensive tackle from Florida that I think is going to visit next month. What it does is, first of all, it's competition, and it allows you to space out your reps a little bit. But it also means that if Nash Hutmacher makes as big of a jump as they think he might make this year, then that's a bonus rather than a thing that you absolutely have to have just to have enough. That's suddenly if Mosai Newsome takes what he learned in the spring and turns into a 20 snap a game player or a 10 snap a game player, that's that's great. That's you just add another log to the fire rather than it being like, wow, thank goodness that happened. Otherwise, what would we have done? It's just more cover, and you can never have enough. I mean, you can never have enough in the trenches in the Big Ten.
There you go. I think that's a pretty good breakdown of what Nebraska's got coming this weekend.
Yeah. Is there anybody else coming, Parker, that you know of?
Not that I know of. I mean, I know that they're still recruiting offensive linemen in the portal, and there's some other positions they'll be looking at, tight end, linebacker probably. And so, yeah, I mean, they've got other irons in the fire in terms of portal guys, but those I think if you were saying, okay, this weekend, who are we on decision watch for? I mean, we know Mathis is announcing on Saturday. He said that, and then I think Devin Drew is probably the other guy that we're on sort of like commit watch for, regardless of who he picks. And then after that, I think it's probably they're still, kicking tires and lining up visits and that sort of thing.
Kicking portal tires.
All we're doing, everybody's just kicking the portal tires right now. We'll talk a little hoops portal later on. Speaking of portal tires, Baylor Shireman just announced on Twitter if his final 10 schools, and Nebraska's included that in that list. But we'll talk about that more later on. Shireman, of course, 6'6" guard from Aurora, who was at South Dakota State the last couple of years. Let's talk a little more football. Let's talk the other big event, the other big event happening this weekend besides the transfer portal. That's the NFL draft. Maybe you've heard of it. Several Nebraska players looking to get picked relatively high. Most notably Cam Jurgens, the offensive lineman, Austin Allen, Cam Taylor-Britt, JoJo Doman. Your other guys that are probably looking at getting picked somewhere, if not the first day, then certainly probably on the second day or early at some point in the second day. So we know what kind of talent Cam Jurgens possesses. He's expected to be an early second round pick. Doesn't look like Nebraska's gonna break their drought of first round picks this year, but it's still gonna be a pretty good showing. You're gonna see Cam get picked pretty high. You're probably gonna see Cam Taylor-Britt get picked relatively high. JoJo, I think, is a guy that's gonna get picked relatively decently, and then same for Austin Allen, who was impressive at Nebraska's pro day, I thought. So again, I'll turn it over to the experts. What are you guys kind of looking for this weekend as Nebraska's guys get set for the draft?
Projections. I think you could see Cam, like you said, Cam Jurgens going in the second round, maybe. I think it's either he or Cam Taylor-Britt first off the board as far as Nebraska goes. I would say JoJo Doman probably right after them, and then I would say a drop to Austin Allen. I read Parker's story that Samori Toure has been making the rounds to NFL camps and has been impressive. I like Toure, and I'll tell you though, having covered, for instance, Jordan Westerkamp and Kenny Bell, and then watching them try to make NFL rosters, so hard. I mean, just what I learned during that period is it's incredibly hard to crack a top 6 in the NFL.
Yeah, Stanley Morgan too.
Thank you, Parker. Exactly. It's just hard. If you look at each team, which I was doing during that period, it was incredible, the talented receiver and how they don't keep that many. There's probably 6. And it's just hard. It's hard to crack that. So I don't know. Toure, that's what he faces. But did I miss anybody, Parker?
No, I don't think so. And then I wouldn't be shocked. We're not probably talking about the draft, but I do think that at least one of Deontay Williams and Markel Dismuke might find their way into a mini camp somewhere. And then it's hard. I mean, it's obviously hard to make a team from that position. Guys do it every year. There's undrafted guys across the league that make a 53-man roster every year. Luke Gifford did it with the Cowboys a couple years ago and is stuck as a special teams guy. And now, he's playing a little more linebacker as well. But yeah, I think those guys, they'll be in the conversation in terms of, their phones will be ringing on Saturday, I would think, with offers to come at least be in camp. I was looking at this the other day, Cam Jurgens, if he goes 53rd or higher, he will be the highest picked Nebraska player since Prince Amukamara, the last first round pick. We don't think Cam will probably go in the first round, but if he goes 53rd, that was so in 15, Amir Abdullah went 54th, and then Randy Gregory went 60th. So that's what you're talking about. You've seen John Baptiste went 58th overall. Looking at the list right now, Levante David was also 58th overall. Worked out pretty good for.
It's a pretty good pick at number 58
for him over the years. But yeah, so that's as high as we've seen anybody go from Nebraska in the last decade. So that's really. We got a story about Cam that will be on the Journal Star's website by the time most people listen to this podcast, probably later on Wednesday evening. Went down to Beatrice this weekend and went to Bull's sporting goods store. He was doing a signing down there, and it was cool to see this, small town kid. I think the general consensus is he's only the second guy from Beatrice ever to be drafted. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And he's got a chance to maybe be the second center off the board after Tyler Linderbaum from Iowa.
A deficiency alert. I don't know who, Baz, do you know who the first Beatrice player would be?
Come on, Baz.
The first Beatrice player to be picked in the NFL draft.
I know who it is, so you don't look.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
You do?
It's a good question.
You're employable, Parker.
You're employable. You've got some skills.
I am.
I don't know. I don't know the answer.
It's Xavier Oman.
Oh, back. Sure. Yeah, the running back. Yeah, Xavier Oman.
He went to Southeast Missouri State, maybe?
Northwest Missouri State. Other corner. Yeah.
Directional Missouri State, got drafted in the 6th round in 2008, maybe, something like that.
He had a great college career. I think he finished his college career like his Division II's all-time leader in touchdowns or something like that, rushing touchdowns or something like that. He had a great college career. Yeah, he was a whale of a player.
Say the name again, please.
Xavier Oman. Running back.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, played for the I believe he played for the Bengals, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong.
Yeah,
maybe you're just mixing up orange colors.
Could be.
That's what it was. That must have been what it was.
We're gonna Google that because I want to know right now.
He was Northwest Missouri State, originally from Beatrice. He was a 6th round pick.
The Broncos, the Bills and the Broncos. That's what it was.
I'll be darned.
He had 6 carries for 5 yards as a rookie in Buffalo. And then the next year he had 5 carries. And it looks like he mostly bounced around practice squads after that.
Yeah, he was out of the league by 2012, it looks like.
There you go. The other Beatrice draft pick.
So the draft is upon us. And what was that sporting goods store called again?
Rules. UHL' down in Beatrice on 5th Street.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just right there on 5th Street.
Right there on 5th Street.
Yeah.
A little bit north
of Rexall.
A little bit north of Court Street.
Yeah.
You have a steel trap.
It was 96 hours ago. It's not that.
Yeah, it wasn't long ago.
You're not Adam.
Yeah. Any other football we need to hit on here before we move on?
I don't think so. I just think it's going to be interesting. I think Cam Taylor-Britt and JoJo Domann, I think that will be interesting. There's a lot of talented DBs and a lot of talented linebackers, but they each have some versatility in their own right. Taylor-Britt, some teams like him as a corner, and I think running 4.37 at the combine probably really helped him in that regard. Like the trust that he can hold up in man and run with receivers in the NFL. But he could play safety too. And he's done that at Nebraska. He did that earlier in his career. And then with Domann, he could be an off-ball linebacker. He might be able to give you a little bit as a safety or a nickel, depending on package and opponent and all that. And so those are both guys that I think that's going to help them. And then they're both, they'll both be value add on special teams probably too. So that they're both guys that, Friday night could be a busy night for Nebraska. That's rounds 2 and 3. And that we haven't really in recent years, mostly it's been Saturday for Nebraska. But I think there's a chance, and we'll see with Domann, but I think there's a chance all 3 guys could go on Friday night, which would be obviously speak well of the program, except for the fact that they won 3 games.
Yeah, except for that minor detail. All right. Should we move on? Talk a little hoops here.
Oops.
Love that.
You love that? Yeah, as I mentioned a little bit ago, Baylor Shireman's narrowed his list of schools to 10. One of the most coveted players available in the transfer portal. Nebraska makes the cut along with Creighton. Some other schools you may have heard of: Duke, Kansas, Kentucky, Texas, Arkansas, Clemson, and then Mississippi State and Wake Forest also in that list. So Nebraska's got some pretty steep competition if they're going to bring the Aurora native back home, so to speak, but it would be a massive, massive add for Nebraska. And I think their odds maybe got a little bit better today with Antonio Reeves, and Illinois State transfer, committing to Kentucky. That was a guy Nebraska had really gone after hard when he went into the portal. Nebraska needs a guy that can play kind of that off-guard wing spot and can score it. Baylor Shireman can obviously do that. Summit League Player of the Year, shot 47% from three-point range, great passer, great shooter, has good positional size, and a guy that would kind of be the final, well, he would be the final piece of the puzzle for Nebraska this offseason. If Nebraska were able to land him, I would expect a decision on that from Baylor probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then that, if it happens, that gives you an idea of what the roster is going to look like, especially with Lat Mayen and Trey McGowan's yet to make their final decisions as to whether they'll come back or not. The writing will kind of be on the wall at that point for both those guys. But yeah, Nebraska's in it for a guy that a lot of schools are after. So it's going to be fun to watch.
I just started covering sports and following it. Is he a graduate?
He'd have 2 years eligibility left. And
2 years.
He's got 2 years. And he's highly regarded. Yeah. He's highly regarded. Like there's a chance he could be drafted in the NBA draft. Like a second round type guy. And it's a lot of this will hinge on what kind of feedback he gets from NBA scouts. And his goal, like a lot of these guys, is to play in the NBA. And coming from Aurora, if you've got a chance to get drafted, you're probably going to take that. So it'll depend on that feedback he gets from the NBA as to whether he even comes back to school or not. There's still a chance he goes to the NBA and that's it, and everybody else moves on. But should he come back, look, Kentucky's in the mix, even though they just signed Reeves. They're kind of looking for one more piece there. Mentioned Duke, some other, Nebraska's going up against all the heavy hitters here. They have the advantage of being the home state school, but it's going to be a fight for NU. So we'll see what it turns out like. And it would certainly add, not that there was any more needed, it would certainly add intrigue to this season for Fred Hoiberg. You bring back Sam Griesel, the Lincoln native. Yeah, the Aurora native, Baylor Shireman, two guys that are going to play a lot of hoops for you, maybe both start for you when all is said and done. Good recruiting class. You return a decent core coming back of players that saw the court for you last year, and you brought in a new assistant coach, Adam Howard, that's going to reinvent the way Nebraska plays defense. So there's a lot going on there, and this is kind of the latest piece in that. Nebraska's been more selective this year when it comes to transfers, as far as, it's not like there's a guy that goes in the portal and Nebraska's immediately one of the schools that's mentioned being in contact with him. They've been much more selective this year. They'd like to get one more piece, and guys like Baylor Shireman don't just drop into the portal every day. So if Nebraska's able to pull this off, I would consider it a coup for Nebraska basketball.
Well, think about it in terms of, I don't know, Baz, at what point you check on season ticket sales. I don't know when all that goes into effect, but think about the impact having Shireman and Griesel on your roster would have on season ticket sales. It would have a significant impact. I would tell you that right now.
Yeah, I agree. And look, we all saw it last year. Attendance was down. Nebraska wasn't very good for the third year in a row, and they had the nice finish to end the year, of course, but they were very disappointing from game one last year when they lost to Western Illinois in the season opener. And there was a lot of nights where it was real empty in Pinnacle Bank Arena. So yeah, you need something to drum up excitement, and there's certainly going to be interest there because Fred Hoiberg's kind of a similar situation as Scott Frost, kind of a prove it type year after having the contract renegotiated with Trev Alberts. So there's going to be interest there, but that's not enough to put butts in the seats. You've got to have something else, and having two guys from Nebraska, from Lincoln, from an hour and a half down the road, that's interest. And it's two guys that are going to play. It's not like you're just adding two schlubs that are going to be walk-ons, so it's guys that would play and have a key role in how this goes for Nebraska. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Sip. It would be something that would absolutely get butts in the seats come this fall.
Schleps.
Yeah, sorry. No
Schlubs.
offense to the actual schlubs. No offense to the guys that are walking on. They're certainly not schlubs, but you get the point.
I understand.
Yeah. we get used to we've sort of gotten, maybe not numb, but we've become accustomed to the portal in the way its mysterious ways at this point, right? And like guys go in the portal, guys from smaller schools go in the portal, they get recruited up from all over, depending on demand and skill, obviously, and all of that. But it just, when I see that, like when I saw that, the way that Baylor Shireman just blew up. I mean, and he had, they had a nice, they had a great run, obviously, in the Summit League tournament, and then, they played tough in the first round of the NCAA tournament, and they got off to a hot start and all that. So he was sort of like, he had a good month of March in terms of exposure and all of that. But like the way that he blew up when he went in the portal, it just made me think, like, just imagine what that would have been like if he would have been recruited like that out of high school. I
know it.
Like playing in Aurora and getting recruited by Duke and it's happened, obviously. The kid from Grand Island had offers from all over the place, but it's just amazing to me that this guy is a prolific quarterback, high school quarterback in high school, and he's a great basketball player. And he ends up going to South Dakota State, and you're like, wow, that's pretty solid. D1, solid program, and all of that. And then 3 years later, he's getting recruited by like literally every blue blood, basically, in college hoops. It's crazy.
Yeah.
How that.
Yeah, it's the list of schools that didn't make the cut for Baylor's Final 10 is pretty impressive too. Gonzaga was a team that was at. I mean, it was any high major you want to talk about, basically. Gonzaga chief among those. So yeah, it's how many years now have we heard that Nebraska needs to keep some of these local kids at home, and you're going back to the Jesse Carrs from Ainsworth and guys like that. It's been like this for the better part of a decade plus now. And now you've got the chance to have two of them on the same team in a critical year. It's going to be interesting to watch. It should be a real interesting couple of weeks for Fred and his staff if they're able to get this done.
It speaks to the other side of that coin though, too, right? Like there are several guys from the state who they've already gotten or are going to get a second chance to recruit, basically. And that could go either way, where it's a guy that you liked and offered and he went somewhere else. And who knows, so many kids transfer that maybe you'll get another crack at him down the road. Or maybe it's a guy who you're not quite sure, maybe you're not entirely sold, or maybe you don't think that 3 years of development is what's in the best interest of both parties, or however it goes. You just never know. You never know if you're going to get another shot at recruiting some of these guys. And now this is the second time already this offseason that Nebraska's got a second chance at recruiting a kid from the state.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously they want to get Baylor. Obviously they want to get Antonio Reeves. But if you miss on both of those guys, then it becomes, where do you turn now? Because, you're getting kind of late in the process. You need to get your roster, kind of settled and figured out here in the next month or so, basically. And because you're going to start summer workouts, you're going to start summer classes in June. So, and that's not that far away. So it's interesting because yes, Baylor's a hometown kid, a home state kid. He's got a chance to come back and make an impact and make a big impact. But if they don't get him, the other side of that is you're right back at square one, looking for a guy that you think can come in and score a bunch of points for you right away. And at this point in the portal game, it's tough to find those guys. I think I saw this morning there's over 1,500 kids in the portal right now for basketball. So there's a lot of kids out there. There's not many that can play the role Nebraska needs.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's still a lot. God, you think you could find somebody in there.
You could. I mean,
get you 25 a game.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
It's hard.
Get you 25 in the Big Ten. Yeah. There's a lot of guys that do that.
It's hard. It's hard.
Well, yeah. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, you'd like to get Baylor, but if you don't get him, then what? Like you might be able to find a guy, but you're not real sure if he'll pan. And who knows if Baylor would pan out either. We don't know that, but he's a legit pro prospect. And look, these other teams are after him for a reason. So the kid can play. We know that. And so, yeah, it becomes it's a fun game to kind of sit and watch. It's probably not real fun if you're Fred Hoiberg and his staff trying to recruit guys and fill that last spot, because if you don't get them, then you're right back at zero.
Not just a barrel of monkeys either if you're the South Dakota State coach.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Also that, yeah, you're losing the Summit League Player of the Year off your team that won 30 games last year.
I was reading the Northern Iowa coach was commenting on coaching at a place like Northern Iowa now, which is fascinating. If you recruit a good player, the chances are you're not going to have him at the end because he's heading off. And then you try to catch guys on the way down from the major conference teams. So it's a very, that world really changed, that South Dakota State, Northern Iowa world.
Yeah, it would be there's plenty to manage at every level. It would be really tough at that level. Because you're basically serving as a feeder for the high major teams. And then, like you said, you're trying to catch guys on the way down too and manage the rest of your roster. So yeah, it's not an enviable position to be in by any means.
They made a good move by, catching Charlie Easley when he left.
I'll tell you what,
Nebraska, and
that kid had a great year.
Yeah, situation where he went there after being a walk-on here, played his ass off. He played really good this year, and I think was technically a sophomore, so he's got more hoops ahead of him, and so it goes both ways. But yeah, it would be really hard to be at that level.
Yeah.
Okay, what else is on the docket?
A little baseball this weekend. Nebraska hosting Iowa out at Haymarket Park. They've got Omaha tonight. We don't need to talk about that because by the time you listen to that, the game will probably be over. By the time you listen to this, the game will probably be over, just starting. So
Omaha tonight.
And well, yeah, Omaha tonight, 6:30. Get out to the ballpark.
I just started following sports, Baz.
I know. It's your first day following sports, but
Omaha tonight and at Haymarket.
At Haymarket at 6:30. They played Kansas State at Haymarket last night. So back-to-back midweek games. But games that matter are this week. You've got 3 against Iowa. Iowa's tied for 4th right now in the Big Ten. They're 8-4. Nebraska, more importantly, is tied for 8th in the Big Ten. They're percentage points ahead of Purdue for what would be the final spot in the Big Ten tournament. Nebraska's 5-7. They've got 4 Big Ten series left. You've got Iowa tied for 4th, and you've got Illinois, who's 2nd, and then you've got Minnesota, who's 13th, and Michigan State, who's 11th. So you've got 2 teams above you, 2 teams below you. You're playing pretty good ball these last 2 games. Can Nebraska carry it into the weekend? Because the Big Ten games are what matter for Nebraska. You're not getting an at-large bid. We all know that. The only way Nebraska's even sniff in the NCAA tournament is if they win the Big Ten tournament. And they've got to qualify for the Big Ten tournament in order to win it. So can you get to where you're finishing above 500 in the league? I think if Nebraska can do that, if they can win 13, which means you've got to go 8-4 down the stretch here in your last 12 conference games, then you got a pretty good shot. Now, you got to go do it. We saw what happened against a not great Indiana team over the weekend. Nebraska played really poorly the first 2 nights, lost both those games, and then absolutely demolished the Hoosiers on Sunday, 19-7. So which Nebraska team shows up, we'll see. Iowa's got some really good arms. We're going to throw at Nebraska, some guys that are going to make it really tough on Nebraska's offense, which has been either boom or bust this year pretty much, and a lot more bust than boom, which is why Nebraska is where they are. So it's a rivalry series, obviously. Nebraska, Iowa was kind of a series last year that kind of kickstarted Nebraska a little bit early in the year. They went out there and played pretty well and kind of got things rolling. So can you do it this weekend? You get them at home. You should have good weather. Can Nebraska find enough offense to win a game or win a couple games off the Hawkeyes to kind of get things rolling here?
All right.
There it is. Baseball.
There it is.
Tied for eighth right now.
Yeah, they're percentage points ahead of Purdue for 8th. So if the tournament started tomorrow, Nebraska would be in, but just barely. So they got work to do. There's no doubt about that. And they're going to have to make some hay against, a couple pretty good teams in Iowa and Illinois, and then you have to take care of business. You absolutely have to take care of business against Michigan State and Minnesota to even have a shot. So yeah, it starts this weekend.
You covering that game tonight?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay, so that series right now, Omaha versus Nebraska is 1-1, or is it 0-2?
It's 2-1 Omaha. They've played 3 times. Omaha's won twice. All 3 games decided by 1 run. Omaha's got a walk off. Nebraska's got a walk off, and then Omaha, it went down to the last pitch in the last game. It was a 1-run game in the 9th, and Omaha got a strikeout of Colby Gomez to end the game. Incited a little John at each other. The benches cleared a little bit, so there's a little spice there for this one tonight. And Omaha's playing good ball. They're one game out of first in the Summit League right now. They're looking at this thing going, we could win a series against Nebraska this season and win 3 out of 4. Maybe could have won 4 out of 4. So
yeah, I don't want that to happen if I'm a Nebraska player or coach. I want nothing of that. You do not want Omaha to be able to walk around all year saying we won the 4-game series 3-1 over the Big Ten.
Like I said, the games this weekend are what matter. But this game matters for a different reason. Like you, if you're Nebraska, you've got to win this game because it's like you said, Sip. If you don't, then Omaha's walking around all offseason crowing. Creighton's walking around all offseason crowing, and every fan base is going, well, Nebraska's the 3rd best team in the state this year. So it is what it is for Nebraska. It's a game that's meaningless as far as postseason things like that, but it's very much not meaningless in a lot of other ways. Well, should we wrap this up? This is, of course, Parker's final podcast. He's leaving us at the end of this week. He made the announcement on social media earlier this week. Sipple and I are in our feelings.
Gonna miss you guys.
Talked about earlier. Yeah, no, you won't. You'll be fine.
All right. No, I mean, it's funny.
Parker, go ahead, Parker. Go ahead.
Someone asked me on the radio earlier on Wednesday, like if I had a favorite story or something from my 4.5 years on the beat here. And I said, and I didn't even really think about it. I said, but then I was thinking about it after, and it's actually extremely true that won't really be the memorable part of having been here for 4.5 years. We've seen a lot of weird shit, honestly, but and
mostly a lot of it from each other. Yeah.
Yeah. But and certainly some memorable moments. But the stuff that is actually meaningful that I'll remember and all of that, not to sound too sappy, is just the ungodly number of hours that the 3 of us have spent together, not just like on a podcast or whatever, but in the car going to West Lafayette and here, there, and everywhere around the Big Ten and all of that. It's just like it's hard I think we try on this podcast, like we try to give people some insight into what covering this stuff is like. I won't speak for you guys, but every time I always try to remind myself, every time we are at a game or whatever, or just any day, if it gets busy or stressful or whatever, like how fortunate we are to like get to write about sports as our jobs and talk about sports as our jobs. It's just like insane that anybody would pay us to do this, but it isn't glamorous all the time, when you're driving to West Lafayette or whatever. And I just had so much fun traipsing around Big Ten country with you guys. It's like when Baz starts yelling at Sipple in the car, you've made it to like Waverly, wherever.
We're barely an hour into the drive.
When the first F-bombs fly, you've at least made it past like 56th.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we had a lot of fun. Oh yeah, well, people should know Parker has an incredible sense of humor. I mean,
he does.
It was a very bizarre period with you two, because you both have incredible senses of humor. It's hard to describe. But I would say this on a serious note: Parker made us better, and that's definitely made me better. And that's about as good a compliment as you can give anybody in the world. I think he made us better.
Totally agree.
Not better as an organization, better as an organization, but better as humans, I think.
I don't know about that for me. Yeah, look, you speak for yourself on that one.
Well, I
know what you're saying.
He made my world a lot easier. I mean, with this sense of humor, we do cover stuff that can be stressful. Parker never, I was saying this on the radio today, he never gets rattled over anything. That is incredibly valuable. In fact, not only does he not get rattled, he usually just has a really good sense of humor about everything. So that was beautiful. Yeah, I could go on. I've always felt that Parker's, so it doesn't sound too sappy. What I tell people is I think he's underachieving at a massive level right now. And that, and I think he should be running Exxon or something like that. I don't like, I always want to say, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Why aren't you the head of a law firm in, San Francisco or Chicago or something? But anyway, you're a damn good sports writer, and Lincoln is very, very Nebraska, I guess, period, is very lucky that they had you for as long as they did.
Well,
Don't cry, Bass. Don't cry.
I'm emotional right now. It's building.
Let it rip.
No, you nailed it, Sip. He's a guy that's become a friend to both of us, I think. I'm not going to try and be too sappy here either, because we don't want that, but we're going to miss the guy. Like, he was a lot of fun to hang out with. He was a lot of fun to work with. He's a good dude on top of that. And look, in this job, like, you guys know it, and maybe some people don't, how much time you spend together with each other in this job. When you're driving all over Big Ten country, when you're sharing hotel rooms, you're sharing meals, you're sharing press boxes, you're in the office, you're around each other a lot. And you need guys that are skilled at their job, absolutely, but you need to be able to get along with the people you're working with too, and you need to enjoy the people you're working with, and we certainly have had that the last 4+ years with Parker and with Sip and with myself. I think we've got a pretty good dynamic, so I'm going to be sad to see that go, but you got to have the right people, and we had the right people for the last 4 years, and certainly we have the right person. And
this rest of the staff too. I mean, Brent was
100%.
But yeah, never think about it. All that, like, if you just keep it at football, we never had any really bad moments with Parker. Now, Baz, you yelled at me a few times.
You and I have nearly come to blows a couple times.
Chicken in my throat.
We can admit that.
Yeah, you almost died on the way back that might have been a low light, actually, just like all things considered. It's hilarious now, but man, that was rough.
When? What time? What day?
When you nearly died in the back seat.
Coming home from
chicken
Minnesota?
In my throat. Yeah.
That was okay. So this was we have time for a story. We've probably told this on the podcast before, but we'll tell it again. In 2017, everybody knew. I mean, it was getting to the point where it was like pretty much it was clear what was going to happen. Mike Riley and that.
This is Mike Riley's last year.
Yeah. But Bill, the setup is that Bill Moose had been hired, and he said categorically from his first day that he doesn't believe in firing coaches midseason. So there was actually this like a little bit of a sense of respite, at least on the beat, of like, hey, you don't have to be staring at your phone constantly. You're waiting for the call or checking with people every single day, because Bill's said categorically and over and over and over again, like, the decision will be made after the last game's played. So there's a beautiful 11 a.m. game on the schedule in Minneapolis. And it was like sort of the deep breath before the plunge, like go up there and have a nice weekend and go out to eat after the game and be in Minneapolis and have a great time and whatever. And what was the guy's name? Anthony Smith, Rodney Smith. Rodney Smith and the opening kickback for a touchdown, finished like 56-14 or something like that. I mean, it was
terrible. Yeah,
it was bad. Sid Hartman, the great Sid Hartman, like literally at one point yelled in the press box, like to his, I don't know what the guy's name was, Bob or something. He's like, "Hey Bob, does Nebraska really suck this bad?"
Yes.
The answer was yes. And it was so bad that we caught wind that they were going to have a call on Sunday morning to decide if they could wait the last 2 weeks, if they could really actually wait the last 2 weeks before they fired Mike. And so we went from having a Saturday night in Minneapolis, a relaxing Saturday night after an 11 a.m. game, to deciding that we needed to get in the car and drive back to Lincoln so that we'd be around if they decided to axe him the next morning. And so it was a scramble. Like, we weren't packed, we weren't planning on driving back, all this. And I was staying with a friend in St. Paul. And so we were driving here, there, and everywhere to get back on the road. And we like drove through a Wendy's.
Oh yeah.
And it was like raining. It was
Yeah, it's
disgusting.
cold
Terrible.
rain.
It was like 40 degrees and
Yeah,
raining.
fog and rain and all of that. And then Sipple, like literally, as we were like, we hadn't even made it out of the drive-thru yet, and Sipple just like started choking on a chicken bone.
I think there are more than one involved.
8
And I
p.m.
believe the words that came out of my mouth were, "Go ahead and die, Sipple." Like I said something to that effect. Just go ahead and die, and we'll drive you home. That's where I was at mentally and emotionally.
It was a
in that
rough.
moment.
We got home at like
Yeah.
2:30 in the morning. Oh.
Yeah, it was terrible. Yeah, it was horrible. So anyway, and
But
look,
we never yelled at each other or anything.
No,
I mean,
like,
not seriously.
No, except for when Baz told
if
you that you could.
if we're calling that the low point of the last 4 years, then
That's true.
that's not too bad.
pretty good.
So we did pretty good. We
It's
had a good
amazing
one.
if you think about it.
Yeah.
And I don't mind saying it. Parker had a lot to do with that. He was very.
Yep.
He did. I mean, if you think about Baz, I mean, you never had to worry about anything. I mean, it was incredible, really.
You and I are kind of all over the place. Sip.
Yeah,
and
frantic.
I don't, we're kind of frantic, and we kind of will have outbursts every now and then. And it was good to have that calming influence.
I don't have outbursts. You have outbursts.
Well, I have outbursts. I have
Yeah.
outbursts at you because
I'm
you're
just
around.
vaguely aware of what's going on most of the time, and you keep me
Yeah.
in. You guys keep me in focus. But that sense of humor is the biggest thing. My God, those trips
Gotta have
are
it.
hilarious. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
hilarious.
got to have it in this profession, no doubt. Well, let's wrap it up on that before we get too deep into our feelings here. We thank you guys for tuning in for the last 4+ years. The podcast will continue
Yeah.
in some form or another going into the summer, and we'll see who the Journal Store finds to replace Parker. Parker, we love you. We're gonna miss you. And to the rest of you, we'll talk to you guys soon.